All right, welcome to part 3 of Module 3, where we talk about EIS procedures. So you can see here we've outlined 8 steps that are taken in the preparation uh, of an EIS, and I'm not going to read through these. We'll go through these as we move along. But the first step is to determine the lead agency. So which agency is going to be um, in charge of the NEPA facilitation. Um, then we move on to the preparation of an EA to determine if there's going to be significant impacts to the environment that are going to occur. And as I discussed before, sometimes we can move directly past doing an EA whenever you know that there's going to be a specific project that's going to already have a significant impact. They're putting in an airport or some kind of major highway system where you know a significant impact is going to occur. There's no need to do an EA. We can jump straight into doing an EIS. And so we first establish a purpose and need, and so we identify the proposed action as well as the goals and objectives of that action. These are informed by overarching policy and statutes or agency plans, but also guided by initial assessments and analyses. So what condition is the current state in, and what are the risks, and what are the needs for change? So once the purpose and need is completed, the notice of intent is published in the Federal Register. This will announce to the public and to other agencies that they will pursue the action and prepare an EIS. So building off the purpose and need, we then prepare for the scoping process. So this will be guided and informed by the assessments and analysis, as well as the policies and plans. It will include initial interactions with stakeholders and resource specialist and analyst. To identify we have a good rationale that underlies the purpose and need. Are the outcomes going to be measurable, and is it evidence-based? The scoping process comes in at this point and gets the public input and other agencies input. The list on the left is that who needs to be involved in the EIS. Are there other issues that the stakeholders might bring to the table? So scoping provides the opportunity to bring in other experts. We can obtain new information that may be unavailable to the agency. The agency can also determine if it needs help with preparation and analysis, and if they need to seek out other assistance. So this is done, with um, what's determined during the scoping process is, what should the EIS, encompass, and these are the people mentioned in the previous slides. Tribes, other interested and affected persons, other agencies. They want to identify potential significant environmental issues to be analyzed. They can allocate assignments regarding the preparation, where they could go and hire out possible other people, identify other environmental and review and consultation requirements. So this typically lasts, 45 to 60 days, and is conducted in these different forums that are shown below. After scoping occurs, a draft EIS is then prepared. And so this will include the design criteria that was developed during the scoping, and any additional information that was gathered within the scoping process. A key component is the development of the range of alternatives. So the middle part here, shown on the slide, with these different alternatives pitted against a no action alternative. And the no action alternative is just used as a baseline, really, for what the other alternatives will do compared to what the status quo is of the environment. So this will also include the preferred alternative. Um, and these alternatives there, and then there's a section prepared on the affected environment and its consequences, and also potential mitigation measures. So the analyses of alternatives. So this is the heart of EIS. Um, Actions other than the proposed actions that could be accomplished, such as the no action alternative, which is them showing the baseline, not that there's not going to be an action that's going to occur or that that's a choice. Comparing the proposal and alternatives to sharply define the issues and provide a clear basis of choice between the different alternatives. So what goes into alternative analysis? So they'll rigorously explore and evaluate, and this is how it's outlined, to objectively evaluate all reasonable alternatives against, there's the no action alternative, there's feasible alternatives that meet the purpose and need of the action and avoid these adverse impacts. So you want to devote substantial treatment to each alternative so that the EIS reader can evaluate um, these proposals um, and discuss the process of elimination um, that was used along the way to eliminate different alternatives, and where it clearly identifies the preferred alternative. This just kind of illustrates this process. So we are required to have a substantial treatment of alternatives within an EIS. The reader must be able to discern the proposal benefits in contrast with um, environmental risks. So the uh, the idea is that we're willing to have some type of environmental risk because we're going to get some type of benefits, and so we need to clearly define what those are within the EIS. This does not mean we're going to have 100% prediction of impacts, which we'll discuss a little bit later when we're talking about more of the legal ramifications. So another component is the infected infected the affected environment. Um, so we have a detailed description of the biological, physical, and cultural resources affected by the proposed action. And as you'll recognize from our previous lecture when we were talking about the human environment and how that's defined, these are some of the examples that may be impacted from a proposed action. The third component of the environmental consequences are the environmental consequences and of a proposal and its alternatives. So detailed documentation and analyses of impacts on the natural and built environments, human health, and long-term environmental sustainability and productivity. So outlining the consequences of the proposed action and alternatives must be based on the best available current science and information, peer-reviewed research, and the agency must demonstrate a hard look, which we will discuss in more detail in our next module. So the next step is preparing a draft. In a draft EIS is that, the environmental consequences and proposal of alternatives must include a discussion of the means to mitigate these adverse impacts. So how they can be avoided, how they can be minimized, rectified and restored, reduced over time, or if there needs to be some sort of compensation that takes place. But an important point is that it does not require NEPA does not require the agency to actually carry out. There's no enforcement of these mitigations or these mitigation plans. So once a draft EIS is written, it will be released and reviewed for comment. And this is typically lasts from anywhere from 45 to 90 days. Comments are received from other agencies, state, local, tribal governments, and interested and impacted local people. Anyone is entitled to access and entitled to comment on the project. So after the comment period is ended, the draft is updated, and all the comments are addressed, and then a final EIS is published, along with the ROD, or the record of decision, within the Federal Register. Which this is where a lot of the legal issues come in, is whether or not the best information or the most complete information was provided in the EIS, and there were some exceptions that the agency can use, that the cost might be very high to obtain this information, where it's not feasible, or there's some sort of means of obtaining that information or beyond state of the art. Maybe some things like climate change or issues like this can come into play. And so after the ROD is issued, then appeals and litigation can occur. And so the agency can also move forward with the implementation of the project, or there can be some sort of appeals, or what we talked about earlier, some sort of stoppage of the process while the proposed action is being litigated. So this is another check that comes in the form of usually the judicial branch, of some sort of initiation by an agency or the public to try and say that not enough, or not enough information was provided within the EIS, that it maybe didn't take a hard look at what was actually going to happen. Yeah, so I mean that's we're getting into some of the more details of NEPA, and we'll continue to discuss this as we move further in the class as the semester goes along. So I will talk to you next week. Thanks.